Welcome to Screenshots. It's a wrap up of 2015 Nationals. Juan?
It was a great weekend. Lot of paddle. Lots of paddle. Oh my God.
President's Cup was exciting for the men.
Presidents, for the women too. I mean, the women had they changed the format this year, so they played a lot of paddle on Thursday, and the men was very exciting.
Went down to the last match, which you got to watch a little of that match.
I got to watch first row,
You got to watch
which was
Max
great.
play.
Max play, yeah. No, it was a fun weekend and a very well organized event.
Yeah, John Noble, Shannon Vincent, their whole team. Kudos. Great job, great atmosphere.
Yeah, great overall event. So today we're just gonna talk about the women and the men's draw, and then we wanna congratulate Region 5 women for winning the President's Cup, and Region 2.
Region 2 men who eked it out.
Yeah, and I think we won. It's the third consecutive one.
Third consecutive year.
So. I think we have a lot of good matches to talk about, and I hope you enjoy the show.
We'll be right back with the wrap-ups for the men's and women's nationals. Okay, Juan, so the women's nationals, Chicago this weekend. I guess the first thing we got to talk about is the teams that weren't there.
Yeah.
So let's start at the top. Vicky Stoklasova decides not to play, pregnant.
Yes.
And that obviously has a huge impact and a trickle-down effect on the rest of the draw. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is two of the teams who were seeded in the top 10, Lauren Mendel and Sue Tarzan, who I think were the 8th or 9th seeds, and Roxy Nika and Martina Andrakova don't make it out there because of weather conditions.
Number 3 seed, yeah.
Number 3 seed, who a lot of people thought were the pre-tournament favorites, myself included.
Not myself, I picked the other team.
Okay. So those teams aren't there. That created some openings in the draw. And I thought the APTA and Shannon Vincent were wonderful in terms of working with the players, trying to get them in, giving them as much latitude as possible. I know Roxy's round of 64 match, she had a bye in the 128, so round of 64 match was pushed off to 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. So really bent over backwards. I was very impressed by that. So let's jump into the draw. First match of note was the Bodman-Hayward McNitt-Spitz match in the 16s. McNitt-Spitz was a team that a lot of people thought they had a chance to win. I thought they were going to make the finals. Bodman-Hayward beat them pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't watch a match, and it was surprising when I saw I was surprised when I saw the result. I don't know, they probably know each other very well.
4 Chicago women play together all the time.
That might be the reason.
Well, Bodman-Hayward played big bang paddle, both hit the ball very hard for both sides. Great win for them.
It's good.
Takes us into the 8th quarters. Doughton Nuzlocke versus Darda Shea.
I just don't know. I mean, I watched a little bit of that match because we're waiting for, I don't know, well, we were waiting to get on the court. I was gonna play on that court against Bondurant and Watt.
Right.
We actually happened to play on that court. So I watched a little bit, and I don't know what happened.
Well, Darda and Shea are 2 different teams. They're the team that plays nationals and the team that plays the rest of the year. Because they're rock solid the rest of the year. They lose very few matches, although this year wasn't as good as last year, and they're great competitors. National rolls around, and it's almost like they expect things to go wrong.
So you think that they go with a negative mindset?
I think they've got a very negative mindset. And
well, in that way, until they change that, nothing is going to change for us. Yes.
Right, and they want.
And I also heard that they didn't want to be live streamed.
Yes, they requested not to be in the live stream court, which they'd also requested the year before at Short Hills.
That's interesting.
So they go down to Doughton Nuzlocke relatively easily. Next quarter, Maine Parsons versus Bodman-Hayward. A lot of people thought Dana is a potential future national champion. Some people even mentioned she's going to be the best player in the family. But a lot of people thought that would be down the road. But they come out of nowhere.
I think this weekend she was the best player in the family.
She clearly was the best player in the family.
Yeah.
Nobody would deny that.
Yeah.
And they beat Bodman-Hayward, killed them. I think it was 2-2, 2-3.
With no disrespect to them, I mean, that was the section where Roxy and Martina were on, and that kind of,
Well, that was the quarter we had talked about was going to be Roxy and Martina versus McNitt and Spitz. Roxy and Martina don't make it out of New York because of weather. McNitt and Spitz get killed by Bodman-Hayward. So it really opened the draw up.
They opened the draw. And look, I'm happy for Dana to make it in her first national tournament to the semifinals. That's a great accomplishment.
Great accomplishment.
But also I'm happy for Ayla. I mean that she's been around for a long time, and her last few seasons
national
weren't that
champion.
good. Former national champion. So
Okay,
good
next
for them.
quarter was Delmonico Gebbia versus Coaches Williamson. I did that match. I really thought that Kerry's understanding of the net and ability to kind of cover for Lauren at the net was the key to that match.
I don't think that was the key. I think the key was Kerry's understanding of the game overall.
Yes.
Because I saw that some games there. I was watching, and Coaches and Williamson, you can tell that they are
Very
great tennis
talented.
players and good talent there. But Kerry, her positioning and the way she was moving the ball around, and it looked like she was dominating, with hitting at a quarter of the pace that the ball that was coming to her. So
She was the best player in the court. I thought Karen Coaches was a little bit tight. Missed a couple
Could
of
be.
forehands because that's their big weapon. But that's a fun team to watch, and
Yeah.
they're going to be awfully good
Yes.
down the road.
Yes,
expect
I
to
agree.
hear from them again. Final quarter was the best match of the tournament. Brzova Cruz versus Kazakovich Prop. Third set tiebreaker. Kazakovich Prop had a couple of match points, on one of which I think Anya hit an out ball. Obviously, we'll never know. But you really got to give a lot of credit to Anna Brzova and Liz Cruz. New team, hadn't played together very much. Nationals being their first tournament. That's impressive. I mean, especially to come through a tight match like that.
yeah. I mean, look, I thought that match was good. Was very well played, but I never had a doubt that Anna and Liz were gonna win it. I never had a
When
doubt.
they were down a match point,
No, I didn't watch the
you
tiebreaker.
would have had doubts if you watched the match.
Well, but I mean, going into the match, I never thought they were gonna, they were gonna
You were
lose.
this close to being wrong, which I know almost never happens.
Well, it just proves it.
Okay, so that takes us to Saturday afternoon, Maine Parsons versus Doughton Nuslock. From my perspective, Dana wasn't ready to play the semi.
No, she wasn't. I think she was happy
Happy to be there.
to be there.
Yeah, and when you're happy to be there, that's the kiss of death.
Yeah, I mean, she swung. I watched a little bit too. She was swinging at her forehand and hitting the shots.
Missing it too.
Yeah, but I mean, if you swing, you're gonna miss some. You're not gonna make all of them.
Looked a terrible first set. Got
yeah.
back into it in the second.
And they were
served for
close in the second, yeah.
Served for the second set at 6-5.
yeah.
Ended up losing in a breaker.
Yeah.
But as you say, they were happy to be there, which Doughton and Nuslock weren't.
No, yeah. I mean, they made it to a semi last year. They wanted to make it through.
And I thought Isla played well in that match. I thought that Dana, as I said, just really wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
So the other semi was Delmonico Gebbia versus Brzova Cruz. And
Four players that know each other very well. They play a lot of
played each
times.
other well, and Anna and Liz were just too solid.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 3-3. Lauren Gebbia is tremendous from the backcourt, not quite so good at the net. And Kerry's experience and knowledge just wasn't enough to handle Liz and Anna. Which takes us to the finals, Brzova Cruz versus Doughton Nuslock. Anna had played against them at Indian Trail with Vicky in the finals there. First set, 6-love.
Yeah.
Just came out great, played really well. Doughton Nuslock steadied themselves down in the second set after losing the first. We're down. Mary Doughton had a Hall of Fame hold at 4-5 in the second.
Yes.
Saved 2 or 3 match points. And at that point, I got to say, I was a little worried about Liz Cruz being able to breathe because she was so nervous
Well, I mean, it's a final of nationals.
and completely stopped hitting the ball. I mean, Liz, who's just super talented and is, in a lot of ways is emblematic of the new age of women's paddle, drives the ball off the backhand, the forehand. She just stopped driving the ball. There's actually one point, on one of the match points, Anna called the ball out, which was overruled by Jean Kempner. We replayed the point, and the poise that Doughton Nuslock exhibited to get through that was tremendous.
It's great.
So they hold, they get to the breaker, and the breaker's all Cruz and Brzova. They win the breaker, I think 7-3. And at the end of the day, you got to take your hat off to Anna Brzova.
Yeah, we were talking with Roxy about that. I think that's good for Anna that she won nationals with Vicky because, look, I'm not gonna lie, without Vicky.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there is no doubt that Vicky is the best player.
No one's got any questions about that, but Anna hadn't gotten the credit that she deserved.
Exactly.
For that.
That's how I feel. I mean, it was great for her to win it. And I mean, and now I don't want people to say, okay, they won it because Anna won it, because Liz also had a big part of it. So
Takes 2 to win and 1 to lose.
yeah, so, but I mean, personally for Anna, I think it was a great accomplishment, and happy for her.
Accomplishment. She's now won 3 consecutive nationals, and she's the only person in the country that can say that right now.
Yeah, so
So congratulations to Liz and Anna winning nationals. Now we got to find out who Liz is playing with next year.
yeah, I think I know, but I'm not allowed to say
You're not
yet.
allowed to say?
Yeah.
Okay, so that finishes up the women's wrap up for Chicago Nationals. Okay, so men's nationals in Chicago. Juan, was it the deepest draw you've ever seen?
Definitely the deepest draw.
I mean, an example was the 128 between Fairchild Gregor and John Noble and Mike Raleigh.
No.
John and Mike are a terrific team, top 30 in the country, playing in the 128 back draw.
Yeah, that was brutal. I mean, it was a bad draw for them. I mean, Paul Fairchild and Carl Gregor must have played great, because it was a tough match, and beating a tough team like that in the 128 is not that easy. Maybe John was tired, after all the stuff going on.
It's hard to run the tournament, and
Very
no
hard.
question.
Very hard.
Although Shannon Vincent did a lot of the running, but we'll talk about that later. So it's a couple of great 64s I want to talk about. Scott Bondurant and Casey Watt versus Bukowski and Kosiecki. Bukowski and Kosiecki had a great year. They had a big win in President's Cup at 3 in the semis. Scott and Casey are in trouble, and they ended up winning, I think it was 3-6, 7-5, 7-5. Just a great win for those guys, and an indication of just how good the tournament's gotten.
Yeah, well, Casey Watt is a very good player. Yeah, I heard he played for Notre Dame.
Notre Dame Golden Domer.
So, and we all know Bondo, how good he is, and what a fighter he is.
A rock.
And the score doesn't surprise me, even though I thought the favorites to win that match were Bukowski and Kosiecki. I think Bondo and Casey, had a chance. I personally didn't think they were going to win, but good win for them.
So the other 64 we should talk about is the mental giant Brian O'Connor and Devin Wakeford playing against Mark Johnson and Dave Ohlmuller.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be Chris Gambino. Chris drops, and Mark Johnson just picks up another former national champion. Not bad.
It's good to have those options available.
Yeah, it's funny, I don't have those partners waiting to play with me. I'm not sure why that is. So anyway, according to Brian, Mark Johnson was just brilliant. He said the third set, his play was amazing. And Mark has long been one of the most talented players in the game. Has had some real good results. He and Scott Bondurant made the semis here in 2011, but hadn't played a whole lot of tournaments since.
Yeah, that score actually surprised me. I mean, especially because it was a 3-set match, and Brian and Devin winning the first set. To me, there the hardest thing to do is to keep David O engaged in the match.
Yep.
And for them to win in a 3-set battle after losing the first set, I mean, I think that's a great accomplishment these days for David O. I mean, David O, we all know he's an amazing player, but he hasn't been competing.
Right.
And the game changed in the last years. He became more dynamic, and he was probably the creator of this dynamic style. I don't know how many years ago. Definitely one of them. But the game kept evolving, and I haven't seen him play lately. But I think that was a great score. I mean, a great result for them.
Well, it almost seemed like the 64s from this year were like the 32s from 2 or 3 years ago, and 32-16s, and just the depth. I know I was at, we'll get to the 32s next, but I was at Sunset Ridge on Saturday morning, and you're looking around, and I'm like, wow, these are around to 32 matchups?
Yeah, no, it was crazy. Crazy.
So let's talk about the 32s. First one that jumps out was the Barnes-Smith-Innes Doya match.
Yeah.
Which Mark and Mick win the first set, lose the second, end up having a real tight battle, losing the third 6-4. Girani and Brad had a great year.
But they had a great result the day before in President's Cup.
Huge upset over Jared Palmer and Jeff Morneau, who I think is a legitimate, I mean, Jeff to me, if they're not playing Durant Parsons or Broderick Palmer, that's a team that's got a pretty good shot to get to the semis and nationals.
They're a very good team.
Yeah, that's a terrific.
The only thing there is who plays the ad, because both Jeff and Jared have been playing the deuce.
Jared, I've seen Jared play the ad a number of times in the Premier League. And
Yeah, but he plays a different role.
Yes, he does.
I don't know, Jared is better at the deuce role.
Well, either way, Barnes and Smith had a great weekend. I think they won Cleveland and Indy, and just played some really good paddle. Gironi's playing great. Brad used to be a little inconsistent, but boy, his game has
No,
gotten.
Indy was Bakker and
Oh, you're right. Bakker, Collar, they beat those guys. Yeah, you're
they
absolutely.
beat Neva and they beat them in the semis actually.
Because Barnes,
Yeah,
Barnes Smith beat Baxter Heath.
they did.
Okay. Still a great year for those guys. Brad Smith playing great paddle, and that President's Cup win was a huge win.
Huge
They
win.
almost pulled off the President's Cup until you bailed Region 2 out. You and that guy you were playing with.
That French guy.
French guy, the
Yeah.
French sensation.
Yeah.
Okay, so next 32, Scott Bonder and Casey Watt, fresh off the win, play Anton Mavrin and Patricio Mistrano in what, you know, again, you have to call Anton and Patricio favorites. First set is really tight. Scott and Casey pull out the breaker and win the second set relatively easily.
Yeah.
Did not think Anton and Patricio played well, but, you know, part of that is Casey and Scott put a lot of pressure on and made a lot of shots.
I was not a little, very surprised by that score. I just feel like Anton and Patricia are a very solid team, but sometimes they have these matches that, you know, the good teams, they can play not at their best
win.
and still win. I think they still have to figure out some things. I mean, I think they're a very solid team.
They had a strange year. They had a great result, obviously, in Longmeadow, where they almost beat Jeff Morneau and Johan Durant in the finals.
Yes.
Had match point, didn't win. Then in Philly, they just crushed Scott Valatek and Vladi Najdek, which is, I mean, that's an impressive win. And then played tough weather conditions. They lost to Sebi and Martin 6-6. And I really thought going into nationals, they were going to be tough. I mean, I thought they were going to play you guys in the 16s. I thought that was going to be a dogfight. I thought ultimately you'd come out on top. But they just didn't play well in that match. I don't know whether Anton's footwork's got to be a little bit better, but it was both of them. It wasn't one of them. Patricio didn't play well in that match either.
Well, I think that Patricio, one of the things he has to improve are his volleys a little bit, and you know we always talk about that. Anton's backcourt game is great, but his footwork sometimes.
His footwork sometimes can be spotty.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so next 32 was yours, also at Sunset Ridge. You and Leonard against Jeff Morneau and Trevor Spracklin, very talented team. Do you think the match started at 10 or at 9? Because I know at 9 it didn't look like you were quite ready to play. I think you started playing around 9:30, quarter to 10.
It was, I mean, look, going to the nationals, and when I first, I'm not going to say we, because Leonard, I don't think he saw the draw. But when I saw the draw, I knew that match was going to be tough because I know how good Jeff is and how good Trevor is. They're both.
Trevor's very talented. Trevor's
They're
part of that
both
DC crowd.
very good players. Very good players. And I have to tell you, I never thought that match was going to be easy. Never. We start playing and those guys are killing us. I mean, they're 3-love, 3-1, 4-1.
3-love in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was brutal. And those guys, Jeff was so on fire. He was making every shot. He played great. So we ended losing the first 6-2. And honestly, I didn't know what we could do different. I mean, we were making some mistakes, playing loose points, and we just played a little tighter. We won the second set 6-love. And then in the third set, we're down 2-love. Trevor serving 30-love. And I was, as a mental patient I am, I was already walking on edge. I was really going crazy, about to go crazy. We played a tough point at the 30-love. We win it, so 30-15, and then Trevor goes on a 3-falter game. And that kind of changed momentum, and Jeff knew after the match. I actually talked to Jeff, and you know, then we win the next game easily, and from then on we took control. We won 6-2, but that game, those 3 faults really helped us. We weren't playing well, and you know, we took advantage of that.
Next 32 to talk about is Mike Marino, Dane Schmigdal versus Scott Valatek and Vladko Najdek. Really surprised Marino Schmigdal took it to him. I thought that was going to be a tough match.
I thought it was going to be a tough match, but
either team winning.
I think I picked Marino and Schmidgall on that one.
You can at least think you picked. It'll make you feel better.
Yeah, no, I think I did.
Well, they won relatively easily, which was a surprise to me. Not that they won, but the scores they won.
I mean, to me, Dane Schmidgall is an amazing player, and they're a great team. I mean, Dane is very good. So that's a score that doesn't surprise me.
So next 32 is one of my favorite teams in the tournament, Tommy Croker and Huntley Montgomery. They are fun to watch, and they just
can hit the ball.
They pounded Anthony Casamano and Nathan Lefevre 1-1. Nathan hurt his his ankle somewhere in the second set and how much of an impact it had in the match. But Tommy's forehand is one of the biggest in the game. Huntley has got so much feel and finesse to his game and character, and he moves so well. That was a fun.
I didn't watch a match, but you were keeping me updated via text.
I was texting.
And when you were telling me what the scores were, I couldn't believe it. I thought they were actually typos, which usually make mistakes.
So the final 32 we want to talk about was probably the most fun match in the 32s due to the atmosphere. And let me take a moment to say that Shannon Vincent and John Noble and their team out there did just a wonderful job running nationals. It was great nationals. So Mark Johnson and Dave Allmuller are playing Karana Wagner at Glenview, and the place was just packed and the crowd was loud. I really felt badly for Karana and Wagner because they must have thought, gee, what do we do to deserve this? Everybody's rooting against us. And Mark and Dave all played great, and it was just a great atmosphere and fun to watch.
Good.
So that takes us to the 16s. So Lubao DeRose over Cochran Estes. Little bit of a surprise, but Lubao DeRose really started to play better in Philly and played pretty well here, and that was a good win for him. You know, Mike and
They
Scott
lost the first set.
lost the first set, won the second set, and Steve DeRose told me that while they're changing sides, Scott's saying to Mike, if we're going to go down, we might as well go down swinging, which DeRose liked hearing a lot.
Okay.
So, interesting. I mean, Cochran Estes, big match players, just never quite found their rhythm and flow.
And that was a round of 16 that was actually played in the morning.
Yeah, that was kind of strange that some of the scheduling where a couple of the 16s were early. Drew and Jared played their 16 early. Lubao DeRose played their 16 early. The others were late. So next 16 of note was Marco Grangero and George Wilkinson versus Alex Menchil and Brian Uline. We pinpointed that match early. Brian and Alex played very well. Had, I think, a couple of set points in the first
I'm not
set.
sure, but I did watch the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker, I don't think.
Tiebreaker was ugly. Tiebreaker went fast. I think Alex told me that Brian popped a calf at some point. Brian fell on Alex.
Well, Brian actually ended not playing President's Cup, I heard, because he did something to his calf and he wanted to be healthy for nationals.
Yeah, he's had some calf injuries for a while, and Brian falling on Alex could not have been too good for Alex.
No.
So Marco and George played great. I mean, that was another tough environment. Same court that Allmuller and Johnson had won on. You know, loud Chicago crowd, all pulling hard for the Chicago guys. And I tell you, one of the transitions that we'll talk about a little bit as the show goes on is last year Nationals, George Wilkinson fell apart. He was a mental midget, tight in the quarters. When did he become a mental giant?
He's
He's a rock.
playing great.
But not only is he playing great, but he gives you nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, he's hit
And we're going to get to our quarterfinal match, but when they were down, he kept swinging. He never slowed down.
He was impressive. So last 16 we'll talk about was a fun 16. Parsons Durant versus the aforementioned Allmuller, Mark Johnson. Played on the show court. Chicago crowd going crazy. Mark and Dave win the first game. Everybody's cheering. And then they lost 11 in a row.
Wasn't it 12?
No, because they came back to win 2 games, ended up losing 1 and 2.
Oh, 1 and 2, okay.
But it was a great atmosphere, and it really felt more like an exhibition than a match, as Mark and Johan walked through that one. So that takes us to the quarters. In a lot of ways, to me, men's quarterfinals are kind of what Nationals is about.
I think it's every year, when I make it to the quarters, I'm happy.
It's just great atmosphere. Now, one thing that happened in quarters, which I want to touch on, was the quarters were sent out in reverse pairs. So it wasn't winner-winner for the 2 matches. It was reverse, which I didn't like, and it ended up having an impact on you, which you don't have to comment on because I'm going to comment on it. But Drew, your match was playing the winner of Drew's match, and Drew went on early. Drew was done at 7. You guys got on the court or Drew's done at maybe 6:30. You guys got on the court at 7. So it ended up they had about 4 hours extra rest, and maybe it played a role, maybe it didn't. You don't have to comment. I know it's hard.
I can comment. I mean, look, the truth is we were tired for the semis, but that wasn't the reason why we got beat. I mean,
we'll get to that. So Broderick Palmer played Lubao DeRose 2-2 in 45 minutes.
It wasn't that short. Actually, Lubao and DeRose, I was watching on live stream. And Lubao and DeRose had a lot of chances to stay close. I mean, but Jared and Drew won some important points. I don't think there were some games that DeRose was serving love 40, they go back to deuce, they get some odds, and then they end getting broken or something like that,
In every paddle match like that, to me, there's this threshold that you have to get over. There's volley that you have to make, this shot you have to make to get into it.
Yes.
And they obviously didn't do that.
Yes.
So next 16 that went on was Goodspeed Bacher.
Quarters.
Next quarter that went on was Goodspeed Bacher versus Boston Bredberg.
Yes.
Rematch from last year.
Yes.
Again, big crowd, great atmosphere. Sebi and Martin win the first set 6-4, playing real well, get up an early break in the second, give it back, and then Sebi blitzes, change of direction, slips and falls, kind of goes through the net, cuts up his hand.
I gotta tell you, I mean, with Leonard, we were watching at the hotel, we were at the hotel at the time, and I had my computer on one match on Lubao de Rose, Broderick Palmer, and we had his computer on another match, so we were watching both matches at the same time.
That's great.
He was phenomenal. Martin started great that match. I mean, he was making so many good shots and swinging and played really aggressive.
And about halfway through the first set, Sebi really stepped it up.
Exactly, because Martin started making some mistakes.
Right.
And then Sebi stepped it up, and Sebi played it great at the end of the match. The end of set. When he started the second set, you could see that Flip got loose, and that's never good news.
Yeah. That guy's unbelievable.
Unreal player.
Yeah.
Great player. So he got loose. All of a sudden it's 2-1, 3-1, and that's I didn't actually. Leonard was driving. I was watching on my phone while he was driving.
You were watching while you were driving.
Well, I did that in the past. But we were watching, and you could start to see the momentum was changing.
They got up 4-1, and then Sebi and Martin turned it around, came back, broke, I guess, Rob Bacher serving for the set at 5-3, got to 5-4, had game points to close out the 5-4 game, didn't, and then ultimately kind of went away a little bit in the third set.
Yeah, well, that happens.
One of the things to me, if I had a stat that I'd like to see most in a paddle match, is it's game points converted.
Yeah, it's
huge. The hardest
huge.
thing in the world is closing out games.
Well, I told you, remember that not that we lost in the semifinals of Boston because we lost a couple of points here and there, but we had so many game points against Johan and Mark that we didn't convert.
Yep.
And missed returns
Yep.
that just drives me crazy. And I said from then on, I'm not missing one more return on game points. I'm just gonna lob the return, which is very rare because I like to swing at the return. But when the match is that close, those points make a big difference, and you don't want to give 3 points away.
Right. Next quarter was Parsons Durant versus McKnight Rose. Johan came out like he was shot out of a cannon. Played very poorly to start with. I mean, they're down 4-1 literally in about 10 minutes. McKnight Rose have set point at 5-3 and played a great point and finished second. And then I think they won about 6 more points the rest of the way. Lost 5 in love.
I was playing at the moment. Actually, they started when we had already started, and then they finished before we finished our second set. So I didn't get to watch that, but I did watch a little bit online already. And he did look like Johan was playing a little fast and hitting the ball hard. And
played fast all weekend. Just looked a little.
Listen, I mean, one thing I like about how Johan plays is that that's the way he plays. And he knows that if he plays his best, he can beat anybody. And I respect that.
No question.
I think he's the best player out there still, even though he didn't have a great weekend. He's the best player, I mean, there is nothing. He has a style that nobody else can play. He can put a lot of balls away that nobody.
He's an astonishing athlete.
He's amazing.
And his highs are
Listen, he
higher
didn't
than
have a good weekend. They weren't the better team. But I like look, he played his style. And when you play your style and you like what you're doing and you're convinced that what you're doing is going to work, I like that. I think that sometimes you have to make adjustments if things are not working. But listen, it was the only match they lost all season.
Let's get to the best quarterfinal of the night. You and Leonard playing against Marco Grangero and George Wilkinson. So you're in complete and total control of the match.
Yeah.
Which of course is a fallacy because you're never in complete and total control of a paddle match.
True.
But you're up 6-2, 5-3, and
40-15.
40-15, or do you have 15-40 the next game?
40-15.
40-15.
Leonard serving.
So on Leonard serve at 5-3. Let Leonard serve first? That's unusual.
Yeah. No, Leonard always serves first.
The old Leonard, maybe not the new one.
No, the new Leonard serves first.
So you're up 6-2, 5-3, 40-15.
Yeah.
I was tweeting for the APTA at the time. I had GSM, Raya Jonassen, 6-2, 6-3. And then what happened?
Like I said before, George kept swinging, and they won. I think we also got a little tight. We wanted to end the point. I actually told Leonard at one point, let's play this point long, let's make them work. We don't need. Leonard, once again, he's loyal to his style, and he just tried to go for it when he missed that. And then things changed a little bit because Marco started blitzing, made a couple of unreal blitzes.
Marco made a couple of unbelievable blitzes.
Great points. And that just changed momentum. All of a sudden we're 6-5 down, I'm serving, and, we get back to 6-all on a long game, actually, because we did have some set points down that we were able to win, and we got to a breaker. I don't think the breaker we played particularly well. I missed some returns. I faulted once, so it wasn't great, and they won. Okay, so then the decision is made to switch courts. Were you surprised by that? I actually wasn't surprised by that. One thing about these LED lights is that they're amazing. I personally like them. I think they're astonishing, but if I had won the set on that court and had all the momentum, I might not have wanted to switch quickly. It wasn't my decision. Shannon Vinson asked us. The players had to agree to it, right? Yes, but Shannon Vinson asked us because the court, you could clearly see from outside that in the hut doing the broadcast, it was a dramatic difference, unquestionably. Unbelievable, those lights. So they asked us if we wanted to switch, and I said, guys, I do whatever you like. I told Marco and Josh because they won the second set, like you said. And Marco said, no, we should switch. I said, fine, let's go. So you switch courts, they break you, first game of the third set, all the momentum appears to be going in your direction, and then somehow you guys regrouped and climbed back in it. Yeah, we started playing well. It was a very, very hard fought match. I mean, every point was and when this always happens to me, but when I lose a point, I go crazy. Really? Yes. But there I felt like I was about to die. You were definitely on edge that match. What happened was, I even though we were playing well, I never felt we could win that match. I never felt like we were in control. Or in the third or in the second? In the third, in the second, all the time. Right. It was crazy. Actually, I did feel that we were in control in the first set. We won it easy, 6-2. And then kind of things changed. And I don't know, I didn't feel comfortable on the court. I did not feel comfortable at all during the match. Well, Marco and George played great. Marco, who's had some struggles with his serve throughout the course of the year, served pretty well. Yes. He served two really good games, one at 3-4 in the third, which he lost, and one at 5-6 in the third, which he won. But both times, I was very impressed, just served aggressively and played well. So you break Marco at 3-4. Leonard's now serving for the match at 5-3. I think you got to 30-all, end up losing the game. George holds 5-all. At that point, you had to feel like you guys were in big trouble. Yeah. So you win the 5-all game, and Marco holds in a terrific 5-6 game. I don't think you had any match points that game. No, it was actually a 40-love game, I think. No, it was a long game. 40-30. I thought it was a long game, but we'll go to the... Was it 40-30? Yes, because I got a ball off the board. That amazing get off the snowboard. Yeah, at 40-30, and then they hit a good roller, and we missed a shot. Okay, so you get into the tiebreaker. And Marco, who played great and given you nothing for the last hour and a half, played a bad tiebreaker. He really, in my opinion, he started playing too fast again. And his blitzes, which had really impacted the course of play so much during the match, I thought he blitzed too much and at the wrong times in the tiebreaker. I think I hit him like 2 times. Yeah, once in the with heel. Overheads. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so you guys win the tiebreaker relatively easily, 7-3? Yeah, with that shot that everybody's talking about. I just cannot. One-handed backhand down the line. People are asking, what were you thinking? I'm like, I wasn't thinking. That's the truth. I mean, the truth is, when I went to get that side back wire, and I'm going towards the middle, I see Marco cheating because Marco and I like to hit this shot around. So I think he moved that way, thinking that I was gonna try that or probably love it. So he moved to the center. So I went for broke on that one, and I happened to make. So a couple of things of note to me. One, that was the third time, as you and I talked about, that Leonard played a third set tiebreaker in the quarters of nationals. Yeah. Had an epic with Jerry Albright against Goodpeed Manninger in 2008 at Rochester, which he lost like, I think, 14-12 or 13-11. Then you and Leonard against Eberle and Uline and Indian Trail, which you win, I guess, 11-9. Very controversial match. And then this one. Yeah. And then the other thing which we talked about was that's twice this year you beat George and Marco in a third set tiebreaker in Chicago. Yeah. First time, which was amazing, you won with the French Sensation. Yes. Says something by itself. Okay, Sunday morning, you guys look tired to me, which again, you don't have to comment on. Drew and Jared beat you pretty good. Yeah, we were very tired. I mean, there's nothing. We were tired, but from not. It's not that we were tired and they weren't tired. We were tired first. We had a longer match, and then we went to bed really late. And with the change of time, that killed us.
Yes, that was a tough situation. Parsons Durant beat Goodspeed Baca relatively easily, 3-1, which sets up the dream final everybody wants to see. And
It wasn't a dream final for me.
the dream final for you or Roxana.
Yeah.
So the finals roll around, and Johan comes out similar to how he did against McKnight Rose. But against McKnight Rose, he's able to turn it around. He plays very poorly early, but doesn't turn it around here. And stunningly, they lose the first set 6-love. So then the second set starts, and they start playing better, and they get up 4-1, and you're thinking, okay, everything's going to be okay now. And then Drew and Jared win 4 games in a row. And Johan has a very tense service hold. Never got to match point, but got to deuce twice. Hold serve for 5-all. Jared missed a couple of balls, and all of a sudden they win the second set 7-5, and you're thinking, Durant Parsons are back. Drew and Jared had their chance. Match is over. Well, the match was over, but in the opposite direction, because Drew and Jared just got a drink of water, came back, and just played rock solid. And to me, one of the flaws of the match from Durant Parsons' perspective was they never adjusted what they were doing. Johan kept hitting that hard, rolling over into Jared's corner, and Jared blocked enough of them and chased enough down, and eventually Johan would hit one too hard, and Jared would make a pay. And Drew and Jared missed nothing at the net. Drew said to me after the match, we had a strategy designed for them to beat themselves. And it was a good strategy, because those are two of the best volleyers in the game in Drew and Jared. And Mark and Johan either didn't or wouldn't slow the pace down enough to get themselves in position to lob a few times to push them off the net. They just kept driving, and Drew and Jared kept making volleys. And ultimately, Mark and Johan missed a shot.
Yeah, no, I watched a little bit online. I wasn't there. I caught an earlier flight.
I heard you left Leonard at the airport for 4 hours.
Yeah, well, he couldn't change his flight. He was the one that moved to Florida. I didn't make him move. No, so I watched a little bit online. Yeah, it looked, at one point, I think it was at 4-love in the third set, that Johan and Mark got together and they go, okay, come on, and actually there was nothing to.
There was nothing to come on.
Yeah.
Drew Broderick, Jared Palmer, 2015 national
Great.
champions.
They deserve it. They play great.
Great year, terrific team. Drew said he really learned a lot watching the matches over and over again, which goes to just how disciplined and what a great knowledge of the game Drew has. He's one of the smartest players in the game. Just great stuff. I think in a lot of ways it's great for the game to have a rival.
It's great, yeah,
Durant
no.
Parsons has been running roughshod over everybody, but not anymore.
No,
So
it's good.
Sets us up for a terrific 2016.
Yes.
And that concludes the men's wrap-up for the Chicago Nationals.